Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Hot Data. I'm your host, Josh Robinson. On this episode, it'll be completely different. Today, we're having a fireside chat with Simon Ouderkirk and Michael Cucchi. They're going to talk about everything from the current state of the internet to how hydraulics solutions help everyone, from bot insights and beyond. So stay tuned, listen, subscribe, like, and share, and get ready for this very intelligent and intense chat.
Awesome. Michael, here we are. Two colleagues, friends even, here to talk about bots, agents, traffic, and how it's changing the world today and how it's going to change the world tomorrow and what we're doing about it. You know,
I'm so excited. I mean, as everyone knows, we spend every day talking about this. So if somebody wants to record it, they're welcome to. No, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you too. I've been looking forward to this. You know, when I look out across the roadmap and I think about the work we're doing today and the way that we're talking to and thinking about customers, it's very clear that one of the spaces that we're leaning into is this sort of agentic suite or this bot suite. And we've been working in this space for a while. And I wonder, like, when you think about it, like, what is it about the market or the customers or the world today that kind of makes this the right time for hydraulics to be leaning in here?
That's a good question. Over the last 30 years, there's been a couple of sea change moments. I think this is one of them, to be honest. And I think the tip of the iceberg was when just behavior on the internet that we had relied on for at least a decade started to change, and we search patterns and discovery patterns and knowledge attainment online started shifting in some significant manner towards this LLM and AI world. And so the first people that felt that were these marketing teams where they were like, oh my God, my Google stack is not showing me what I need anymore. But now that iceberg is starting to get realized. And so, it seems like pretty much the entire internet as we know it is transforming. Software as we know it is transforming. And so, we're sitting here in a moment of humongous market and technology change. And our product has some unique benefits to it that are drawing us along with it. But the bigger story is there is this tide, there is this undercurrent of change that's shifting all software behavior. So it's a crazy time, and yeah, I think we've got a big part to play in it since we've been so focused on the public internet and experience across the internet.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you mentioned the Google stack, because so often in conversations with customers and even internally, we kind of use the anecdote that I think the experience that everyone has had, which is as we started our careers as little baby tech professionals, everybody has the experience of having opened up Google Analytics and just being overwhelmed, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is a dump truck of information. How am I going to handle this? And one of the caveats of Google Analytics, of course, that we all came to accept is a canonical truth of understanding how things work on the internet is this is sampled data. And not only is that acceptable, it's enough for you to do everything you need to do. And as this agentic traffic grows, I think it's becoming increasingly clear that's not it. That resolution isn't going to get us where we want to go. And the folks who fail to recognize you need that full fidelity, you need to be able to look back confidently without relying on sample data, they're going to achieve a competitive advantage in the marketplace, especially as we see this agentic traffic growing from 45% to 55% to beyond.
Completely. I mean, if you think about 5 years ago, Google behaves. We have methods to tell Google what to look at and where to index and how to index. Agentic traffic, LLMs, they don't behave. So all of a sudden, the methods we had to keep our companies optimized for discovery, but also secure, they all kind of have to get thrown out the window. I've been in data science for a long time, and there's one rule that has been a constant my whole career in data science and machine learning. More data means faster, easier analytics. And so when at times like this, you want all the data possible because you have to you need next level of insight, next level of perception across this data. And so it's not a time to be limiting a data set because nobody knows how to solve this yet. So that immediately put our platform into the highlight because we're able to keep all data across these massive data sets across internet interactions, and that is where we're going to discover this next level of technology. One of the things that is crazy that I've noticed even recently in our marketing department, the combination of this traffic switch online and also privacy rules that are being passed for like traditional tracking methods, cookie tracking methods. From a marketing department perspective, I can tell you that our visibility has gone down 80% in just a traditional sense. So at the same time as teams just losing dramatic visibility, all of a sudden this traffic type is getting more and more finessed, harder and harder to track, requiring more advanced analytics. And so we have kind of a perfect storm. It's a baffling moment, honestly, for somebody trying to operate and master all of this at once. The other thing you made me think about, by the way, you and I had a great conversation with a team at one of the major e-commerce companies. And the funny thing about Google is that Google's AI behaves well because they've been doing this for 20 years. And you were pointing out like how trusting we were with them. Well, guess what? They learned a lot by doing that. And when you observe Gemini crawling these sites, it's okay. But when you have these new technologies that are kind of stumbling, their AI is kind of stumbling out and grabbing whatever information it can, it's really hard to perceive and predict what they're going to do and why. And so that's this new challenge.
And this is really one of the kind of core principles behind the bot suite in general, the Insights product, the Agent Navigator product, and so on, which is it really rings out to me in some ways. You probably remember as well as I do the sort of rise and fall of the growth hacker as a career track, right? And a big part of the like underlying need for that role was we got to better understand how people are using the internet. Not just like, is something loading appropriately, but okay, what does the funnel look like? Like, where are people failing to find success? Where is our web presence, our digital presence, like failing to meet their needs? And how do we address that? And I really see a lot of Agent Navigator in particular as starting to turn that same lens onto these agentic visitors, onto these folks. And you're totally right. Like, what makes it really challenging is they don't like act in a way that a human does. And sometimes it's totally baffling. And that's true for both, I think, what we would call like benevolent visitors, like non-human visitors who are aligned with your business interests, as well as those who are not, right? And they're not always easy to detect just from behavior alone. Because even benevolent, aligned, incentive-aligned non-human visitors, in sufficient quantity and insufficient thrash are still going to have negative impacts to your business and to your human customers, which is a really hard needle to thread.
And also potentially suboptimal experiences themselves, right? Which we need to kind of balance all this. I'd love actually to throw you a bit of a curveball. So I came out of security, or I spent a good amount of time in security, and threat detection in that world went from this same kind of journey, actually. Initially, we were doing kind of static scoring on what was a risky behavior. So we just tally it up like, ooh, that looked bad once, that looked bad twice, that looked bad 10 times, go tell somebody, right? And then we kind of moved to like machine learning thresholding. And then there was this huge moment where what that industry called UBA, user and entity behavioral analytics. It was this moment where you could all of a sudden detect a needle in a haystack kind of thing. You were going from a sledgehammer to a scalpel, but now really, really finessed single user behavior, this day, this place, this device, this location, just really, really fine-grained behavioral alerting and thresholding. And so to me, this what we're doing with our product is like trying to mimic that same transition, but we're doing it for robot and agentic AI detection. Anyway, I think it'd be cool to hear, like, because we were on this data thing, we took all this data and we're kind of building a behavioral recognition and an intent engine, if you will. But it'd be cool to hear like the layers that we had to abstract from that data and how we got to that, because I think it's super interesting. The final result that we're analyzing isn't really a big data crunching problem. It's actually a visual, which is just so cool to me.
You know, it's really interesting because the journey that you're describing for the security sort of development angle, this really underlies kind of part of our journey in the discovery process in this same space, which is so many of the first blush customers and like our like estimates or guesses around what people were going to care about was very much this like what I'm almost thinking of as like a legacy or like old school mindset, which is robots are visiting, stop them, like get rid of them. As soon as you can find them, stop them. We don't want them. And then you can see a little bit more modern, which is like, there are two classes of non-human visitors and some are good and some are bad. And the bad ones we want to manage and the good ones we like. But one of the things we're really driving with in the bot suite right now is, I would say, an even more sophisticated perspective, right? Which isn't just there's good and bad, but much more like there are visitors who can serve your business interests, and there are those who are actively trying to detract from your business interest. And understanding which are which relies on an understanding of like what's important to your business. You can imagine like the New York Times is going to have a very different perspective on what good and bad bot behavior looks like compared to like a major e-commerce retailer, right? Like they'll probably share some overlaps around like, nobody wants their stuff to be like scraped and resold. But when you get into the edges and in the nuance, that's really where competitive differentiation is going to come from. And that's really how I see the bot suite like driving into those customers.
Yep. And then I would say like today, customers want to move from bot visibility to LLM aware. So it's so bad. And so Simon, you threw out a stat earlier, but basically it's been accepted for the last 12 months plus that bot traffic has grown so much that it takes up more capacity of the internet than human traffic. And we accelerate to today where you've got LLMs training in addition to all the indexing. You've got agentic work happening. You've got users doing queries that result in what's called RAG, where the LLM is live going out and indexing. All of this stuff is happening live today, but customers today are so antiquated that they literally, like most of them say to us, can you at least tell me when it's an LLM versus a search indexer? And we're like, yeah, we can do that. But then you start to realize that inside of that LLM traffic, it's just this new world of dynamic automation, dynamic requests that you need to master. And so we very quickly, we released that first thing that, was great because we were basically giving long-term annual trend analysis, including the identifying LLMs inside of there. But the very next question from customers was, how do I tell when an agent is live querying my data, whether it's good or bad? And so we had to make this shift to this intent-based kind of like awareness about sessions. And like you said, some of that behavior is good. Like some of this repetitive, I'm filling the shopping cart with a bunch of things to see the reaction of the site might be a very good thing. Like in some e-commerce agent-to-agent stuff. You want that. You want it to go fast. You want to give them the right information quickly. But we also saw in a couple of travel hospitality sites that was basically a dynamic scraper stealing travel information, travel pricing. But anyways, so I'm going to lead the witness. So we took all this data that we had, and we took all this knowledge of what normal internet behavior was across any of these web properties. And so we could effectively see that golden funnel, that thing, that commerce funnel, for example, on an e-commerce site of somebody identifying a product they want, looking at the details of that product, selecting a large t-shirt, putting it into the shopping cart, etc. And we were able to learn what normal and good was. And then with all of these reams of session data, we could start to see what was good, bad, succeeding, failing, and start to see a nuance of what a human would do versus an agent. One of those things that I've been hammering on is that agents go so quickly and humans go in seconds. And so anytime you see this behavior that's super repetitive or super rapid, you can start to have your heckles go up. But the really cool thing to me was that ultimately what we did was we took pictures and we used like a DNA pattern recognition, which I like, that just blew me away when you go to like deep, high machine learning algorithms and data science, all the way back down to just a picture. Like, this is a healthy DNA strand. Here is another DNA strand. Tell me if it's healthy and tell me what it's trying to do. And because you have so many DNA, you can actually predict behaviors. Like, to me, that full circle was pretty cool.
I mean, if we're talking about having our minds blown recently, I mean, the part of this whole project, part of this whole process for me that has been most eye-opening or maybe perspective changing is we talk a lot about this stat, right? Okay, most visitors today are non-human, right? Some are really sophisticated, some are not that sophisticated. But at this point, most bits that are going out are, non-human visitors. And that has started to make me question even like who the internet is for, right? Like in talking to customers about it, they're like, oh, well, we want to make sure that humans can buy our stuff. But it's like, well, if you are now receiving signal from all of your data pipelines that most of your visitors are actually non-human, then maybe we need to flip that script, right? Maybe the entire idea of how commerce is going to be done on the internet is itself experiencing this much bigger shift. And that's
We're
pretty
doing that right now in marketing at Hydraulics. We're literally, I used to insist that all content was like human and not AI driven. But now we're purposely providing like context and markup that is written for AI, literally. And so things like adding FAQs to every blog post, humans aren't going down and reading those nested FAQs, but you better believe LLMs are, and they love to have question answer index data. So we are already shifting our internet at Hydraulics to, and our presence to be tipped towards AI, away from human. And that was 12 months. Like 9 months ago, we were allergic to it. And now we are literally building for it. Again, this goes back to like, Google's not going to get it done anymore, standard Google, right? So like as a marketing department, you actually become kind of the cutting edge of a company. And I think we see saw this week, like security is just catching up, like companies are building with this stuff, going so quick. And all of a sudden, security realizes they have to manage all this and pull it together. And I agree that people are waking up that the internet needs to serve non-humans, which is crazy that we're saying this at work. I feel like it's Terminator. When was the first Terminator? Was that 2008? When did the first Terminator
James
come out?
Cameron, he's always ahead. He's always been ahead. He always has been.
I mean, here we are. The head of OpenAI said that we are at the singularity. He said that yesterday. He said we're officially at the singularity.
Well, talk about marketing.
Let's
just check
out. We're done.
Let's get down to kind of brass tacks on the bot suite though. Like one of the really consistent positioning statements for this product and kind of Hydraulics in general has very much been like, okay, we are in a position to inform but not decide, right? Inform but not execute. Very much sort of a good neighbor, like better together sort of positioning. How do you feel like that's going? Like where does that sit within a customer stack? Like how is that finding traction within the marketplace?
That's a great question. I actually think, people say category creation. I think we are creating a category, or a category has been forced on everyone. So we're kind of coming out of a chapter where the consumer has been using a general purpose platform to solve their problems, whether that was security or SEO or, content optimization, whatever that was. It was a platform play. Now, all of a sudden, the world has moved forward like, at an exponential pace, and platforms are still important. And you're still based your workflow and your business on that platform. And so it's still important, but there is a technical gap that's been created where the platform simply can't serve this next generation. And this is a window of opportunity where everybody's trying to develop to it, but some technologies will have some inherent differentiators that will lend themselves to it. For us, that was being born on the internet. That was being able to scale to internet scale exponentially. That's being able to analyze data near real time. And again, this agent stuff is trending towards a sub-second world, and it's being able to keep a ton of data to analyze it. And so all of that is lending us an accelerator to solve a problem that these platform players can't solve. And so to me, it's tough going because like we've got an answer and we need to complement and augment existing embedded stacks of technology. And so that's exactly what we're doing. And you and I and others on the team talked about this literally just this morning. But as you move into signaling and being the alerter that something is broken or something is not working, you need to be extremely responsible at that signal. Otherwise, you're just creating noise and you're just confusing people and you're slowing down a response or a reaction to a problem. And so we see ourselves as something that nobody else can do actually, which is this visibility layer, this insight layer, this confirmation layer, this we call it a data layer that you can inject onto your stack and you can start to see things you never saw before. And then you can start to work with your existing stack of technology to solve those problems, implement policies in terms of security, block those that you don't want. But for now, we really add this layer of visibility that you can act on. So we're an intelligence layer, and we have technical capabilities that others don't. And so our job is to play really, really well with these existing ecosystems. And so an example, right, everybody knows that we are the technology behind Traffic Peak, which is a massive global internet visibility solution. They have an existing security stack. They have an existing bot management stack. that is responsible for making sure those properties are controlled and that bots are managed and optimized when they should be and blocked when they're not. And so we can now supplement that technology and basically inform customers and e-commerce companies and travel hospitality companies how to leverage that existing tech stack to solve this next generation traffic problem. So that's the idea, is that we augment, but again, it's not easy, because I think you mentioned the problem, but we didn't mention how perverse it is and how unaware people are. But even though all this traffic's happening, only about 30% of the people in the world actually have a technology stack ready. So there's this moment where we have an extremely differentiated, extremely important piece in helping companies solve this gap on the internet.
Yeah.
And so that's not by getting in fights with existing technology stacks. That's by leveraging what we've got and helping companies implement it as fast as possible. It shouldn't be a rip and replace, right? There's no time for a rip and replace. We can't re-platform. We have to augment to solve the problem as fast as possible.
That's right. Nobody's got time for an 18-month migration in 2026. Yeah,
exactly. And so we just layer right on top, and we just give them this like long-term, highly sensitive visibility layer, so that they can see things they never could before. Basically.
Yeah, this good neighbor idea, this better together idea, it really does feel mandatory, especially as a firm. It does feel like we're skating to where the puck is going, right? Like when folks see this solution, their first inclination isn't, oh, that's like these other 8 things I've seen before. It's very much like, oh, I've never been able to see my data this way before. And the play is pretty neat, right? Because one of the principles that we've been able to put in place at Hydraulics is every feature that goes out, not only is it MCP ready, it's coming packaged with skills so that you, the customer, can make the most out of this. And this means that for our customers, they are energized about this, right? That we are not only making things to help them understand their bot traffic, but we're also going to integrate into this next generation stack that they're only just now starting to think about how to work.
That's totally it. It's 100% it. Like MCP, all this agentic stuff, we've been talking about it as a web property story, but it's basically going to transform how you can put a technology stack together to solve a problem. And it's exactly right. Like the tech term is federated, but basically it comes down to what is the workflow that you're trying to achieve. We'll assemble it for you. And so it's easier, seamless, transparent to basically send a query to us and get an answer and inject it into an agentic bot management solution, right? Like the world is going towards a best in breed, completely transparent set of technology. Gartner calls it an ecosystem, but the traditional sense would be like a fabric of technologies being pulled together to solve a problem. And so this is like, again, for the geeks, software moved to a microservice architecture. This is like the microservice architecture maturing into workflow automation. It is super exciting, but I think your point is so valid. The days of like old school integrating with a stack are gone. Now it's like a built-in for us. Everything we ship, if it's MCP, you just plug and play, which I think it's, again, just another one of those like sea changes. You and I would not have been saying this 12 months ago at this company. We wouldn't have been saying this, but the world is now going to build on MCP. And so it's exciting. And it makes stuff like this so much easier.
It's also to our advantage on the other side, right? Like we've talked so much about, okay, how does Hydraulics like engage in better presentation of the data that we're observing? How do we make sure that we're plugged into this modern and sort of emergent MCP workflow approach? But the other side, we're achieving an advantage as well, because it does feel like the emergent story about like using agents at work is very much like, oh, you don't want to think of it as an expert on day one. You want to think about it like an intern, okay? And it needs guidelines, and it needs guardrails, and you need to set it up for success, and there's an onboarding process. Well, the same argument applies, right? Like, well, if you were onboarding an intern, would you say, here, welcome, we're excited to have you, and we're going to give you access to 10% of our documentation and only the stuff that's been updated in the last 7 days? Like, how well would you expect that intern to perform?
Exactly. So what you're alluding to is that traditional bot management solutions out there, traditional analytic solutions for this traffic would definitely cap you at 30 days. There's some security stacks where they cap you at 7 days of data. And it's exactly right. Like, you're going to try and run a business critical workflow, and you're only going to give it limited data to make a decision off of. Like, that is a lose-lose. So I agree 100%. That is the idea. So we'll take like a 30-day window and literally seamlessly, transparently, we'll make it a 15-month window or 24-month window. And again, coming out of the space of bots, let's say it's e-commerce, the holiday season matters and things change at the holiday season. There's thresholding, there's all kinds of sensitivity that you need to build into your models. And if you don't have seasonality, like how can you build that intelligence out without it? So I agree 100%. That's
exactly right. And it kind of mirrors the broader change in the internet that we talked about before, right? Which is the internet is for humans, and there's some robots over here. And so too have the understanding of, like, when we think about like log data and we think about other like high volume sources of data, the interfaces that we had into those were built for humans for the most part, right? Like some software APIs, of course. And humans can only really cogitate on and come to understand a certain amount of that. And even if you want to understand a huge amount, your query languages, your compression approaches represented a necessary blocker or an enormous delay. But these modern agentic solutions, especially coupled with hydraulics, are going to be able to actually appreciate and make value and find signal out of things that we just couldn't before.
You're making me depressed. You're making me feel old. But I keep bringing up this microservice thing, okay? Because applications went from 3 stacks, they went to tens of microservices, then they went to hundreds of microservices. Netflix and Amazon and like the world's largest streaming services could be 1,000 microservices running simultaneously. A company like Amazon is doing 100,000 updates, easy, 100,000 updates an hour, like 50 million updates to the application a year. There was a moment, the reason I was saying you make me feel old is there was a moment like 10 years ago that I realized it's not a human problem to solve anymore. Like, we are way exponentially past the point that a human could understand, track, and analyze that much data. And now, to your point, you're going to take all of that complexity that is software complexity as of 2 years ago, and we're going to now put piece parts inside of that are a whole bunch of like mini workloads. It's the data problem it's exponential. Like, Moore's law is playing out across data easily. There's no question that we used to be able to get by on sampling data. We used to be able to get by on limited, scope analytics. Now, all of a sudden, to solve the problems for non-human workflows, it's a big data, exponential big data problem.
Well, and it's also not like, it's like anything, right? There's going to be a ramp up and a ramp down. And I don't think anybody expects like every single firm, like the New York State DMV isn't going to be doing agentic workflows next year, right? But
I hope not. We'd all be in trouble.
I actually am returning some license plates this week, so I hope they're not yet. We've got to accept that some firms are going to be faster to onboard, engage, and find excellence in this space, and others are going to be slower to do so. And the folks who are moving quickly are going to find compounding improvements, right? They're going to be achieving advantage. And there's going to be a secondary loop that we've never seen before, has never been a part of the internet, right? Which is these agentic workflow firms, we think about Anthropic, we think about OpenAI, all the rest, like their platforms are going to begin to privilege the companies, the firms, the stores that create interfaces that make it easy for them to do their jobs, right? Because they too have a budget. They too want to get the best answer as quickly as possible. And if you are a reliable source of quick problem resolution, quick customer satisfaction, you're going to get this compounding effect that is inconsistent, has never happened before, right? And so I think we're not just talking about like incremental improvements for early movers. I think we're talking about like exponential improvements. Like, I think this is going to be a really big deal.
Yes, but I agree 100%. Also, the early movers get the benefit of building clean, and like they can just go grab the most contemporary tech stack off the shelf, which again, our technology is part of that off the shelf stuff. But honestly, I think the story where like hydraulics is going to play the biggest role is helping the incumbents accelerate and innovate and transform themselves into a competitive force against these young, fast upstarts that have a totally different economy that you're talking about. But that's the whole idea. Like, I think that we have a layer that incumbents can just accelerate immediately into these agentic, contemporary, real-time and real world situations that we know are happening, and they're not yet able to master. So I agree with you. At the same time, I think everybody's going to have to become great at this. This is everyone's day job, whether they realize it or not. And so that's why I'm so focused on us integrating into the existing stack and helping be a bridge to this next world. I've never believed in a company that said they were going to take over and become the next platform. To me, because I was a practitioner, I don't ever really believe in a full replatforming. Like, you need a technology growth and a technology innovation in your business. But I don't know many CIOs and CISOs that survive a complete re-stamping, so you need to start to augment and to remain competitive. And I think we've got the right tech to do it. I think also, like, you're seeing, you're a lucky product manager. You're seeing the world's like best logos adopt us and co-develop with us, like that. To me, that is so compelling. And I'm super excited to see what you bring to market, because we're basically working with the cutting edge and the most demanding environments. And we've got a platform that can stretch to do it. So it's an exciting time for us, I think.
That's exactly right. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting place to be. And this has been a really great conversation, Michael. I really appreciate it.
You too. Get back to work, my friend.
Yeah.
But no, thanks for the chat. I really appreciate it.
Of course.